Hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on the planet. This is Kathy Frey, and welcome to this week's IMCO Maternity Natural Health webinar, and hosted by IMCO, the International Integrative Maternity Healthcare Organisation. So welcome this week to Jutta. So have a wave, say hello.
Hello, everybody, and I'm so excited to be here. Can't wait to talk to all of you. But I give the word back to Kathy because I'm sure she want to say something. So just to quickly, Jutta Wohlrab is really how you pronounce my name.
Jutta Wohlrab. I'm working on it.
Good one. We're all working
yeah, look,
on it.
it's neat to have Jutta here, and just wonderful. So look, for those of you who are just signing on in at the moment, it would be great if you go into the chat at the bottom of your screen and let us know whereabouts you are in the world and what your role is. That's always great for us to know who the audience is that's live with us today. And of course, there's also that section down the bottom where the Q&A, the questions. So if you have any particular questions for Jutta, just let us know, type them in, and we'll make sure that they get answered before the end of the session. So for those of you who are watching it later down the track, we'll just give you a little bit of a background introduction. So Jutta is a world-renowned midwife of 38 years, almost 40 years as a midwife, and she's founder of Elements of Birth, and is a best-selling author of Happy Birthing Days, and she's also an international speaker on the topics of positive birth psychology and out of trauma into happiness. And she's consulted with over 10,000 women in her program, Happy Birthday Days, and she's welcomed over 3,000 babies in the world. And some of you may know that this is recorded, that I happen to be based in New Zealand. This is an international operation, but that's where I happen to be. And Jutta is in Germany, in Berlin, but she actually worked in New Zealand for a couple of years, a few years ago. So that's always kind of interesting. And so the Happy Birthday Days was created after about 3 decades of her observing why some women had a happier birth than others. And she noticed that the traditional Chinese, childbirth education is not empowering women to use their mind and body and the hormones to their birthing advantage. And we're so on the page on that that feeling. And nor is it empowering birthing partners to be involved in creating positive birth habits. So today we're going to be talking about how positive birth psychology can make that childbirth education exciting and empowering. So tell us. Oh, I think we've got you signed in there twice somehow.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that happened, and I'm also quite sure what we do now.
Let me
I
have
myself
a little
only
look.
signed in once.
I can remove that one.
Oh, please remove.
There we go. Sorted.
Not completely.
So today we're going to have a bit of a casual chit chat, and so as I say, your questions are absolutely welcome. And let's have a look. We've got a doula here from England. Lovely to see you. Thank you. And we have what else have we got? A physical therapist coming in from Virginia in the USA, and we have a doula from Vermont. Just welcome everybody. It's lovely to hear where you're from. So, Jutta, let me sort of get some questions going on this, but tell us what is you feel is so exciting about childbirth education, and what gets you excited about it?
Okay, I love this question because in general I'm a very positive and easy to excite person. So let me go a little bit back in time. because you have to picture, I started midwifery in 1983, which is really a long time ago. I'm sure you understand what I mean. And so in the 80s, when I was just a young midwifery student, I learned and studied how to give birth according to a French obstetrician who was very famous in those days, or just became famous, and his name was Frédéric Leboyer. He was a wonderful man, and I've met Frédéric a couple of times. And the hospital where I studied midwifery in Germany, well, they used his method and helped women give birth. So in fact, I was already brought up in the sense of that childbirth should be natural, you know, nice atmosphere, dim lights, double bed, partners there, candlelight and stuff like that. So later on, when I then started practicing in different places all over the world, whether it was home birth, birth centers, big hospitals, small hospitals, I quickly noticed, okay, right. Things are not just everywhere the same as they were in my lovely hospital in Stuttgart, yeah. So I had a real reality check. Of course, I always took the knowledge that I had along to the births. But, you know, in those years, I didn't really do much classes because in the beginning, I was very busy just attending births. But later on in life, when I started working in the first home birth practice that was here in Berlin, a place in the early 90s where we already did water births, I was still quite a young midwife. I started running my first classes. And I got a bit confused when I asked my colleagues, so how do you run classes? What are you teaching? And I could see, there was a big range of this and that and this and that. Now, anyhow, how the years passed by, I started creating classes in my own style, influenced by my knowledge and by my feeling that I wanted people to have a positive experience. I wanted couples to feel empowered, and I wanted them to feel a bit more in charge of what's going on. So it is the good old saying, instead of being delivered, yeah, you give birth. And so for me, with all the work I did and all the things I studied and learned, whether it was hypnosis, NLP, whatever, yoga, God knows what, I integrated that into my childbirth classes. Now I really full on got into classes in the past 13 years, I would say. And what excites me about it is when I ask people, oh, have you taken a class? Often people will roll their eyes, yeah, and they say, yeah, and I say, oh yeah, what does that mean, yeah? Then they say, yeah, last time I took a class, didn't really do much for me, one answer. Then they say, oh, you know, all the other people and the cups of tea were really great. And I asked them, but have you not learned something? For me, it's like that. And I really think all birth practitioners should think about it. Childbirth education is the one weekend or the different modules that you teach that really should get people excited. It should get them into the mode of, gosh, I want to give birth. I want to give birth. It should be like this. When people leave this class, they should feel like, wow, I've learned something. I feel empowered. I feel informed. I suddenly have many more choices laying out in front of me. Partners should really have the feeling like, cool, I know what my place is. I know what to say and not to say. I know how I can help and support and how I can become part of the birthing team. It should be something that really, yeah, as I said, puts people into a good mood and takes away all fears, all doubts and worries. And this is really what childbirth education should be about. I have to say, in reality,
I'm so with you, so on the same page with that. It's I have a situation where I speak at an annual baby show, and when I have this 45-minute session, that's all I've got to talk about labor and birth, and you know, that's a pretty ridiculous amount of time. But anyway, so often the women will come out afterwards and go, oh my gosh, I've learned more in that 45 minutes with you than I've learned in the last 8 weeks attending these classes. And it's such a it's crazy. I don't know why we seem to be stuck somewhere in the way that we're delivering childbirth education sometimes. But how do you get into that education? What is the difference that you think between your classes and those classical classes? Because, you know, okay, I mean, I think it's a case that we've got amazing women who are childbirth educators who want to deliver fantastic information, but where's that disconnect happening? You know what?
Okay. again, let me let me share something. I lived and worked in Australia, and so to be able to teach in Australia in a big hospital, I had to sit 7 very long weeks through a childbirth education class. And after that 7 weeks, I thought, oh my God, the woman was very nice. My colleague was very nice. She was a mother of, I think, 4 children. But she would stand right in front of the audience like this. And she would say, you wait until the day comes when you give birth. And I thought, oh God. And she was going on like, oh God, I feel more scared than I was before. So I think, there is a whole system is stuck in a whole system. As they feel like this is how you should deliver your information. This is what you are supposed to give. But I don't think they ever actually asked the people, their audience, what is it that you are really interested in? See, today I spoke to someone in an interview and I said, okay, look, imagine you have a small kid. You show this kid a beautiful, whatever, banana cake, okay? And you say, look, this is banana cake. It tastes fantastic. Then the kid says, great, I want to make a banana cake like you did. So you give flour, bananas, eggs, milk, sugar, and you say, well, here are all the ingredients. Go make a banana cake. That's for sure not going to work. So I think to change the things that you are teaching and to really think, what is it really that will have an effect? What can people really use? Well, just talking about the 3 stages is not going to help you. Just talking about the 3 stages doesn't show parents to be, what does it mean and how do you get yourself into those stages and what can you do to actually make them happening? And so for me, I wanted to bring a bit more fun. I wanted to bring also different perspectives of all the things that I do into my classes. And so like this, I created my own system. And I feel, sometimes practitioners are just stuck in what they think is their comfort zone. When I was a younger midwife, so like 20 years ago, many of my colleagues would say, no, don't show any films about birth in your birth class. It's going to frighten people. They're going to go, oh God, what is that? Yeah. So you see, this is all this kind of stuff that goes around in people's minds and heads, where I think, well, it depends what you show. It depends what kind of pictures will you create in people's head and what kind of feelings and images are you going to connect so that they get really excited instead of just being bored or even frightened.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't you think that sometimes some of the classical ways that childbirth is educated on is almost a little bit dumbed down? And, sometimes I've sort of sat there in those classes going, jeepers, like they're not in kindergarten. A lot of the parents these days are university educated and, articulate people. And it's almost like we've simplified it too much sometimes. Do you feel?
Yeah, I feel a bit like that. What I sometimes feel is more, how can I say? They are all grown-up people. Even when they're young, they know how babies are made. Yeah, they made one. And often I feel it's a bit this stigma, you are not allowed to speak about sex or, sexuality or sexual things. Whereas we know as birth educators or as midwives or birth professionals, we use exactly the same hormones in our sexuality as we use when we give birth. So often I will refer to sexuality. I will say, look, when you go on a date, certainly you're not going to put all lights on and inspect every part, will you? What you're going to do is you're going to make dim lights. Yeah, you talk to the right side of the brain, soft music, candles. Yeah, you make it comfortable. Yeah, this is how babies are made and this is how they are born. So it's quite easy. Or you can give this example. I tell for instance, I often say, imagine you go away with your partner to a nice hotel on the weekend before Corona, of course. Yeah. So someone in lockdown. Anyway, and are you just so in the mood, you're just getting right into it, kissing, hugging, and, ready. And then suddenly it knocks on the door and they say, sorry, we forgot to give you the towels. So, whatever has been going on, you put your nightgown on, whatever it is, you walk to the door, your bathrobe, you pick up the towels, thank you, and then you walk back. But then you have to start over and over again. So, it's so easy to see the connection from sexuality to childbirth. And I feel sometimes, for for some classes, like these are not the things we talk about. We only talk about the 3 stages. What happens when you get to hospital? We show the theater to say, in case there's a problem, this is where we're going. Well, I think, well, look, darling, if we have a problem, we're going there anyway. So no need to always show me the emergency exit. I know exactly where it is. And so for me, I find the concept is sometimes rather weird. Yeah, because I had a lot of people here. As you know, I live in Berlin, so I have an international audience of parents to be that come to my courses. And you know, those people come from all over the world because Berlin attracts a lot of people, whether they're from India, Indonesia, America, Sweden, Greece, Jordan, Iran, Syria, people are Ethiopia, Nigeria, so they come from all over. And honestly, they also come clearly from very different cultures, or even from cultures where partners usually don't come to the birth. When they come here and they come to the class, I can tell it changes their whole perspective on childbirth. It gets the partners into, please let me come to the birth, which of course they can, even during Corona. And often people come back and say to me, wow, that was the most amazing day of our life. And we can't even express how wonderful it is, because it's not just about pushing a baby out. I mean, giving birth is far more than this. And your childbirth education should really be much more about what can you do? How can you give birth? How can you be part of your own birth story? How can you really be empowered instead of just lying there and people will do something for you, on you, and with you, which I think is not so great.
Yeah, well summarized. Yeah, and I love your comparisons of that, you know, sexual intimacy of the moment where somebody knocks on the door and goes, here's some towels, because we can all know how that just changes. Then you've got to start all over again, and yeah, that's a lovely simple comparison that I think everybody can, you know, our mothers to be and fathers to be can understand. um I remember when whenever I would have a student doctor on on birthing suite, and you know, they need to tick off in their book that they've had so many births and so many appendectomies and so many of this and so many of that, and you know, oh well, that lady can't let me in the birth, you know. And I would sit down with these sometimes quite young student doctors and say to them, if that woman allows you to be, you know, present for the birth of the baby, that is, you know, as big an impact as you being present at the conception of that baby.
Absolutely. Well, you
And
know,
they're like,
I
oh,
can
and
only
I'm like,
agree.
yeah, like this is a big moment. This is, yeah. And I love your comparisons. It makes it very real, I think, for people. So do you think a different way of running classes that, you know, can bring that positive change for birth professionals and parents to be? I think sometimes as birth professionals, there can be almost a reliance that, oh, that client has been to some classes, so, you know, I don't need to spend that time, which of course is a bit fatal on,
Oh, yeah.
you know, trying to produce those great results, or helping the mother to. Yeah. So what do you think is that those positive changes that could easily be done that need to be done?
Okay. Depending on in which country you practice, that's already one thing. Is also how long are your classes going to be, what's going on. And, you know, I think one thing is when you run classes, that are fun and really change people's life, it's far more rewarding than when you run a class where you feel yourself when you leave the class, oh yeah, it was just ticked off. So for me, one thing is when you, when you teach classes that is supposed to bring positive change, you have to look a little bit into yourself. What is your own perspective? What is your perspective on life? How do you live life? And how does it feel? Because we will clearly always bring our own personality, surely our knowledge, but also our own perspectives into our birthing classes. Now, in a way, I think, for instance, That's a problem that some practitioners are facing. If you had a lot of traumatic births, which is easily happening nowadays, because in the world we look at 30 to 80% of a C-section rate. So, you know, when I talk to students nowadays, they're often very frustrated because they feel like they haven't really seen a birth. So then it's very hard to imagine, how is this actually supposed to work and how can I promote something? So something in a certain degree you have to work on. If you had traumatic births, you have to really work on the trauma and release it yourself, because you're going to take it into the birth room. And then you should open your mind and really look, what can you integrate in your style into your class? Now, I, for instance, think the positive change comes when you not only give facts, but also when you give stories. People love stories, and stories stick. And remember, all of us that have been at a birth, even remember some births that were maybe 30 years ago, 37 years ago, 10 days ago, whatever. So there's always great birth stories, like whatever. There's a story of one of the women that was in my care, second baby. And she came to my classes and she said, with the second baby, she rang me in the night and she said, I have a little bit of niggling. It's not much going on, but I think I can't attend the yoga class tonight. I said, that's fine. You just rest up. And then she said to me later on after the birth, she said, so I thought an hour later, I think I just get up, maybe take a bath and relax. But when she stood up, she thought like, I think I better don't take a bath. I think I better go to the hospital. So she woke her husband and, you know, the nanny came or the babysitter, whatever, and off they went. The hospital is about 15 minutes away. She said, I was going into the labor ward. I looked at the midwife when without words, I just took my knickers off and the midwife said, already? And she said, yes. And 3 contractions later, the baby was out. So, you know, I thought that was a very funny story of someone just taking their knickers off. But anyway, there's plenty of stories that you can tell, even about births that maybe didn't go so easy, that will still empower the couples, because stories is a great part of childbirth education. Tell stories from your experience. And because I'm such a positive person, I always point out on the positive aspect, even when it had to be a cesarean. Yeah, because sometimes we know that will be necessary. And we're grateful we can perform a cesarean because we know it has saved mothers and has saved babies. There is no doubt for me, but not 30 to 80%. So yeah. I share also stories where complications arise. And I also still show to people, look, sometimes people say, oh, but then I maybe have a cesarean, or I had one. I say, well, but even all your breathing skills is something you can use on the way to theater to calm yourself, calm your partner. You can still breathe to the baby, connect to the baby. So there's a million tons of things that one can still use. One should not think one thing is just good for one thing, because when you integrate things into your life, you integrate them into every situation. And that is, I think, a true skill.
Yes. Oh, so agree with you. And, you know, when a woman has done everything in her power to try and keep that birth normal, and she's prepped and she's got educated and, you know, she's done all those things, if it does become that emergency Caesar, you know, she can put her hand on her heart and say, well, I know we did everything we could. That's how it was obviously meant to be. But that trickiness, don't you think, it also so often shows, particularly with when women are pregnant with their seconds, is where there's a lot of regret from that first birth because they didn't engage in that full way. You know, they were busy at work and they couldn't make the classes and they didn't read the books, and you know, suddenly they go, oh my God, you know, I don't want to go through that again, and I don't want to let my baby, you know, this baby go through what the last baby went through, kind of thing. So they kind of often get empowered, don't they, with those second ones. Now we've got some comments coming here. Let me just have a little read. I'm just need to look at a different screen. So we've got a question from Zainab. I have a question about getting excited for giving birth. What are your top 3 tips? At the moment, I'm practicing hypnobirthing, prenatal yoga, and reading a book about hypnobirthing. So obviously we're talking to a woman who's pregnant here. It's
I
a lot
think
of our
so,
audience
yeah.
birth practitioners, but it's nice to have the woman here who actually are pregnant too. And Zainab has said, look, sometimes I feel excited, but not that frequently. Today I visited a birth center. I thought I would walk in and feel excited about giving birth there, but I did not. So what's your kind of thoughts about those top 3 tips? That's quite a good question there.
That's a good question. So first of all, congratulations on your pregnancy. Yeah, what an exciting time. So I can hear already, I'm guessing, not knowing you, that you turned to hypnobirthing most likely because you were maybe a little bit scared and you were hoping that this is going to help you, which in fact hypnosis often will do. My top 3 tip would be actually to get in touch with me, because I think your topic is bigger than we can speak about right now. See, I love yoga and it gets me excited too. I love hypnosis because I'm a hypnotherapist and I teach hypnosis. But if someone can't get really excited, then my feeling is, and please don't take it personal, but I think there might be something going on that's just a little bit bigger. Normally, I would say you get excited when you understand how birth works and when you understand what you can do to empower you. Because as I said, it's no good just to know there is 3 stages if you don't know what can you do to make them happen. Same thing is when you think about the mindset. Yeah, when you have some doubts or worries, that's okay, because that's absolutely fine. But sometimes just reading a book won't just solve all our problems. Sometimes we need to speak to someone, because you can shift things absolutely in your mind. I can guarantee that, because I know that, because I've worked with hypnosis a long time. So I think for you, maybe you also have to turn to one of the midwives in the birth center and ask her, because they will be at your birth. And so you should have a feeling of trust and friendship with them to open up, and maybe then that could solve the problem. So what you do is already fantastic. Hypnobirthing, reading the book, and doing yoga, all of that is great. But to answer this question properly, I would know exactly who you are, what has been going on in your life. Yeah, whether that's your first baby. And I think, this we can't do right now in here.
Yes, because as you
Okay,
say,
I'm
it's
sorry,
probably
yeah.
a little bit deeper than that. And also it's probably a part of what gestation you are. So, if you're sitting at 26 weeks and you're not quite in that, oh, I'm feeling super excited mode. Well, I think a lot of women at around that stage are still in that place. But quite often, don't you think, Jutta, when they kind of transition into that 3rd trimester, especially when they get past around 32 weeks, and they're just like, oh, like it's really going to be happening. So what is probably of more concern would be if you were sitting at about 36 weeks and you're not feeling excited, because you want to feel that you've got to that empowered stage. And thank goodness, most of us do have 9 months to get our head into the right place as well for that. Now we've got a comment here from Nancy. Don't you think a lot of the reasons for this, so we're talking about the lack of excitement, I guess, is because women are being taught what will happen at the hospitals, etc. Basically how the hospital approaches the labor. Yeah, we're both nodding on that one. I became a support community childbirth educator. I love what you are talking about. Thank you. Yeah, so you're right. It's more sometimes, and sometimes perhaps it's also, I love the fact that you're talking about share stories, and because almost everything that you teach in a class as a midwife, if you've been in midwifery for a while, you can have a story that is an example of that. We do have, I suppose it's a bit challenging for our childbirth educators who are CBEs, but they're not midwives. So, they don't have those caseloads of years and years of in the trenches stories. Makes it a little tricky.
But here comes, even if you don't have your own stories, you could refer to other stories. And
Right.
look, even if you wouldn't have any story yourself, how can I say, there's so many fantastic elements that you could mix into your childbirth class, you know, whether it's the aspects of, okay, let me give you an example. Like, I speak much about neurobiology because I love the brain, the hormones. And for me, the hormones at the birth are playing together like an orchestra. And so I always say, well, it's not diamonds that are a girl's best friends, it's hormones. Hormones are a girl's best friend. Yeah. And then I introduce this whole orchestra of hormones. Yeah. And when you speak, for instance, about dopamine, for most people is a happy hormone, but in fact, dopamine is a motivational hormone. It's something that will get you going, because every time when someone tells you, hey, Kathy, that was fantastic, you did really well, a little orchestra of dopamine things in your brain goes, yay, Kathy, you did well. And that will fire off some new pathways that will be helpful for when you go the next time to do something, or you can refer back to the moment when you had this experience. Say you passed a test, or you know, you did something really well where you were a bit anxious or something. So when you speak about dopamine, for instance, there's ways how you can integrate dopamine. Depending on from which culture you come, we know that gratefulness has great results. Gratefulness, gratitude is something that will actually change something in your life for yourself. And the act of kindness, when you help someone without expecting anything back, will even have a much better result. For instance, even on people with depression. Yeah. So there's big stories about that and big research. So for instance, if you just tell people, that's what I do in my course, change a bit the way you speak, and that will change a bit the way you think. So give 3 compliments every day. The first compliment should be a compliment to yourself. Think, what do most people do? In the morning, they wake up, blah, 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 blah. They go to the mirror, they think, oh, bad hair day, no good. Who is standing in front of the mirror going, yay, 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 I feel good, yeah? And I also talk very nicely to myself. So one thing. So think about your inner dialogue. How are you actually talking to yourself? Do you call yourself often stupid, or what are you doing? What is your inner dialogue like? If that would be your best friend, would you be happy? Or would you think, wow, how are you talking to me? Secondly, give a compliment to someone that is close to you. Often we forget to say, hey, I love your beautiful smile, makes me feel good. And then thirdly, give a compliment to someone that is a total stranger and see what kind of ping pong effect it will have on you. And already with this, you can start integrating in a very simple way, something that is fun, makes you feel good. And when you go to labor ward, you can also give a nice compliment to the midwife opening the door, because maybe she's a bit stressed. When you are nice and friendly to someone, we know when people have more empathy, the outcome at the birth is better. And we also know when people think, hey, you're sympathetic, you're kind of sort of someone I like because you're friendly and smiley, these people will do an extra stretch just for you. So, you know, it's little things that will change everything. And so things like that you can integrate in your class, and people will go like, yeah, yeah. And then they start doing it. Yeah. So that's,
I
so for
love
instance,
that.
something.
It's quite a pay it
Yeah.
forward mentality, and that's awesome. Yeah, I like the 3
You
compliments
have
a
to
day. I'll
keep in
adopt that
mind,
one.
I'm an NLP
Now
trainer
I
and
know
I
that.
love that.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Now I know that you have what you kind of have called the 5 pillars of positive birth psychology. Do you want to go over what those are?
Yeah, I tell you a little bit about it because I already actually hopped into it when I gave you this talk about the dopamine and the compliments.
Right.
So I'm honest, positive psychology was founded by a man in America. His name is Martin Seligman. He's a psychologist. And he was one in the 60s who decided to research happiness. He was the first happiness researcher in psychology. And I met Martin Seligman in America on a big psychotherapy conference, the biggest actually that there is in the world. And so when I was listening to his talk, I thought, gee, the man is really right. Actually, it resonates with how I live my life. So I must be into positive psychology without knowing it. So, I was digging a bit deeper, as I am, a bit like a spy, always looking what goes on like a detective. And so the 5 pillars, one of them is positive emotions. And it's about how can you create more positive emotions about yourself, whatever is going on. And so, for instance, this little dopamine thing that I just gave you is a way how you create more positive emotions. Things, especially right now, think about Corona. Yeah, when you think about like Germany, we're in lockdown, people are very worried. And so you have in heavy times like that, where you really, there's a lot of stuff going on in economy, in the world, people get stressed and worried, but stress and worry is not going to help. So even in the darkest times, you can find positive things, even if it's small things. So that's something you have to integrate. That's something you have to teach in your class. Yeah, that has great importance. The second thing is the engagement. Engagement means, for me, how are you engaging with this process of being pregnant? How do you engage with the people around you, with your practitioner, your midwife? Okay, if it's a doctor, yeah, how can you, instead of just, oh, I'm just going to have a little listen to the baby's heart, you can also really engage with them. And that doesn't mean you have to sit for hours with them, but it should be like, forgot your name now, that asked before about not being excited. You should engage with the midwives in the birth center, because they will be present at your birth. And for sure, they're going to be happy to engage with you. And engagement, when you feel like you're part of something or connected, that changes something. For me, it's also, how can you connect with your baby? Yeah, understanding that the baby from 5 weeks is already very active and participating in every step of this pregnancy. Baby's first classroom is the woman. It starts at already 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks. So that's one part. And then, of course, your partner. Whoever your partner will be at the birth, yeah, or whether you're part, like in New Zealand, I know the Maori population, it's like a big family affair. Yeah, so I love that. So it's that part. And how can you integrate it and teach that in your class, that these things have great importance? Yeah, and then of course your relationships, but it's also very much the relationship to yourself. Yeah, what do you really think about yourself? Who do you really think you are? And to be really honest, and strip away some of, the layers, and then also, get into a good relationship with yourself, because you're human, and you, like everyone, you are just on a journey. I mean, that's it for me. I feel we're all on a big journey, and we should sometimes journey together a little bit, yeah, and propel ourselves not at the edge of the universe, but forward. And even if sometimes we are stuck, it's relationships and friendships that will do it. Now, when we talk about relationship, it could also be that in your life you change something. When you think back about someone that was very, very helpful in your life, could be many years back. There's this exercise where you think about someone that changed something in your life, and you write a letter to this person. Yeah. So you can write a letter to your yet not born baby and say, hey.
Yes. Yeah. I remember
You
doing
can
that
write a letter
myself,
to an
actually,
old
with our
friend.
children. When I was heavily pregnant with our children, and I wrote them a letter, and I sealed it, and I gave it to them on their 18th birthdays.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's such
Who
a
knows what it?
such
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
So what else have we got here coming through? Oh, somebody's asked how they can get in contact with you. Well, everybody that obviously you're pretty easy to Google, but also everybody that's
Yeah.
registered to attend
Oh,
this webinar will receive an email tomorrow, and that has your information in there. So that's all covered. And we've got another question here. Oh, what else we got there? Childbirth classes also can change consumer demand for better births in hospitals. That's very true. Yeah.
absolutely,
Common led.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can put my hand up for that. I guarantee that my classes have changed that. And I can also tell you from my experience, so to speak, 33 weekend courses, only about, happy birthing days last year. And that the midwives in hospitals are often already happy when they ask the woman, where did you take your class? Because they have seen the positive change. Look, it's both ways. Women will ask for other things. They will say, but I want a water birth. I want upright birth. I would like a birth ball. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they will say it in a very nice way. And midwives that I hope some of them are waiting for women to ask for those things, get excited. Because, yeah, I agree, whoever you are, I tell my clients, you are not prisoners, you are clients. Yeah, hospitals wait for you to come in because they will make some money with you, and they want happy customers because only happy customers will say, oh, that was an awesome place. So here in Berlin, let me share that. Right now, we have an anthroposophic hospital for many years, which has a very holistic approach. Anthroposophical hospital means according to Rudolf Steiner. They work with homeopathy, with oils. Everything is in beautiful wood, and yeah, they've done water births for a long time. So this is a popular hospital. They only take a limited number. But we have another hospital here that is part of a study for upright birth. And so they are also really delighted when, women come well prepared. And so, it's women that can ask and demand, this is what I would like. And it's hospitals that in the long run will follow. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that goes right back to, the changes after the 50s and 60s, where by the 70s, partners were able to be coming into those birthing rooms. And that was, that was woman-led, saying, this is what we want. And so it's kind of, but at the same time, it's like women do need to lead that as well. And, and be ferocious, I guess, and empowered as to what it is that you want. But at the same time, not perhaps, you still want to have a nice relationship with the individual staff that are with you. Because, sometimes women can present in a very entitled way that can rub staff up the wrong way a little bit. So almost like a bit demanding and bossy, and and it's not. It's a two-way relationship, because that woman brings with her to that labor everything that she knows about herself, and the midwife brings that clinical knowledge and support. So you need each other.
You need each other, and Kathy, you should make it a real team. And a real team, again, this is also something. I think, when women write a birth plan, it should have positive language. Because let me share that for all of you. When we say 3 times no, like, I don't want this. And like I usually say, write your birth plan as if you're sitting in a taxi. The taxi driver doesn't want to know that you don't want to go to London, and you don't want to go to Auckland, and you don't want to go to New York. He will say, well, what do you want? Yeah. So I would say, think about, it's not, people don't want to know what you don't want, because when the brain hears 3 times, oh, I don't want this, and that I don't want, and this I don't want, it creates a big no in the head, and then the next answer will be no. So a birth plan should be written in a positive language, yeah, because that will far more create a yes brain, and a yes brain will be much more willing to come forward and support your case. And that's it.
Yeah. We've got, we'll be winding up soon. So if anybody has any other questions, do come through on that. We've got an anonymous question come through, obviously again from a lady who's pregnant, sort of saying, look, I want to have a home birth, but I'm worried that my husband won't be able to support me through it. Can I do this alone? Well, you definitely need birth support person or people to be around you, but it doesn't always have to be the partner. So, it's lovely, isn't it, when partners do want to be part of it, but sometimes in some situations, I've had situations, you're probably the same, where I've got partners who are actually disabled, so they can't be in that same participatory kind of mode. I remember one guy who said to me, oh, look, I really can't stand the sight of blood. And, you know, a lot of people say that, right?
Yeah.
But you're a little bit, oh, you'll be right, you know, and I'll hold your hand through it. And there was a tiny bit of blood, and this man turned green, and he's like, oh my God, we need to sit you down. Like, he really, really could not stomach any of it. And yeah, so you just do have those situations, but anybody, you always will need birth support people to answer that.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah.
Can I say my opinion? I don't know how pregnant you are, and I'm not sure what's going on. First of all, if you are thinking about a home birth, the question is your partner not supportive, or is he just afraid? Because then it would be great to have a chat with a home birth midwife just to speak about the situation. If your husband says, I'm happy for you to have a home birth, but I really just can't participate because I might be fainting, or this is just culturally something I really don't want to do, I agree with Kathy. Definitely, you should always birth with a professional midwife, because she is the one that will really care for you and look after you, make sure everything goes safe. But of course, you don't necessarily need your husband. But maybe there are some parts where your husband still would like to participate. Like I had a birth of a good friend of mine. This is about 25 years ago. And he always said the same. He said, I can't see not one drop of blood. So he was there for massaging and breathing and all of that. But when it was time to really birth the baby, he was just nipping out, waiting until the baby was born and everything was kind of done. And then 5 minutes later, he came back in. And, you know, so it depends. And, you know, Kathy, me, we really don't quite know what's going on for you. But that would be my advice, yeah? To really have a word.
And of course, you've got access to doula services. So they're very good at being that sort of middle person between, you know, not taking over the birth support, but helping the partners have that confidence sometimes. Sally has asked a question here. I appreciate your focus on positive psychology. How do you, Jutta, suggest that getting hospitals to adopt that same philosophy?
Yeah, that's going to be a bigger job.
Yeah, that's quite a long discussion.
I can know that to make it short, because we don't have so much time, depending on where you come from, and I'm not sure what your role is, but I think the positive psychology aspect, let me share, I've been speaking on and running 3 workshops in Germany about this topic this year, and then on an international conference this year with birth professionals, and also 2019 in Bangalore for birth professionals. I think the key to implement that into hospitals lies within the staff, and the staff is wherever you are, obstetric nurses, midwives, doctors, because it's something that they have to apply to themselves. And it was quite interesting when I gave this talk in India, when I gave this talk, or this even a workshop in Germany, my colleagues got actually very excited, because when you apply this element of positive psychology, it's something you can't just apply to your clients. You, first of all, you dish out the soup, but first you have to taste it yourself, right? So it's something that you kind of integrate in your life. And so it's a two-way thing. I don't think you could just say to a hospital admin, can we just apply positive psychology here? They could be like, what? So it's the people. People keep on going. That's what I say. And people have the power. So it's more something that you start with yourself, and then maybe someone else will think, wow, but look, somehow something has changed. You know, to go from a pessimist to become an optimist is not going to happen overnight. But when you integrate more positivity into your work, into your life, or in your classes with your clients, your colleagues will probably see that it feels different. That's what I always noticed when I did my work, that often my colleagues said, somehow different. I said, yeah, true. Good question. How come? So let's dig it out. And yeah, I don't know if I can help, because I'm happy to educate some hospital staff about that, run a workshop. That would be easy for me, because, you know, it's something I integrate in my whole work. Yeah, you can't
And
separate those
often
things, right, Kathy?
yeah, and often I don't think it, the hospitals themselves have got some long ingrained cultures that have become their norm. And it can be quite a process to get things to change. But it's all about the people, isn't it? And bringing them all in over time. I remember in the way back when having skin to skin after a cesarean was a new thing. And, we would put the baby, on the mum's chest here. And of course, right behind her is the anaesthetist. And it took a long time to get all the anaesthetists on board with that, but slowly over time, there'd be some that were quite resistant, and you'd sort of go, well, because we need their consent. We need them to agree as well, because they are in charge of what's going on with that woman too. And yeah, but slowly over time, it took it from being very foreign and weird for the anaesthetist to being absolutely normal for the anaesthetists. To have a baby sitting right next to their woman who's also got lines in and, and blood, pressure cuffs and everything else going on up there. So it's a gradual process sometimes, isn't it, working with our hospitals?
It is, but reality is that most women right now at this point in time will give birth in a hospital. And that's just as it is. And until that maybe will change again, many years will pass. That is for sure. I'm optimistic. Sorry, I'm also realistic. And I'm a person, I want to bring change wherever I can right now and here. And so that is why I say, you just change things for yourself. You integrate it into your life. You integrate it in your teachings, your consultations, whatever you do. It doesn't matter whether it's how you teach your yoga class, how you go for a postnatal visit, how you attend a birth. It's so many different parts in life. And trust me, people will enjoy it when you give them some positive aspects. Even, how can I say, when times were difficult or a birth was difficult, and we sometimes say, you give birth to a premature baby. I have a mom who birthed with eclampsia, really big fat HELP syndrome. Her baby now at 33 weeks. Okay, 33 weeks is not so bad, but still, to have the stress of, and the physical aspect when your blood pressure just goes up and you fear for your life, you fear for your baby, that is stressful. So even if you just go to the postnatal visit and you tell her how well she's doing, how great it's all going, every little gram the baby weighs more, yay, it's a celebration. So this woman said to me, you know what, Jutta? It feels so good just when you come for a visit and you just tell me all the things that are going so well, despite all other things that are not so well. But you can always find something that is good. And so this is also part of positive psychology.
That's beautiful. Well, we are going to have to wind this up, but is there any other things, Jutta, you'd like to add, that you'd like to conclude with? Anything we've missed?
I could say we could have another long chat, I'm honest, because it's so much fun. And there's so much more in it. And, we just even took a little bit. Well, all I can say is, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are. I just hope you connect with me because, I really have a much bigger plan in mind. And I really hope that my talk, my presentation, a few of my insights gave you something positive for tonight, this morning, this day, and maybe gave you an idea how you can change your approach to whatever you are doing. And well, it was absolutely an honor, and I'm delighted that I was here as a guest. And I hope I'll see all of you somewhere over the rainbow, the other side, well, in this life. And yeah, I hope I'll meet all of you. And if you meet me somewhere and you just come up and you tell me you met me on Kathy's fantastic Zoom video podcast show, whatever, and well, walk up to me and say, Jutta, I saw you and I heard you. I'd be happy to give you a hug. Yeah, so that's really it. Yeah.
When we can hug again, the day will come.
Oh, the day
and
will
for
come.
those of you that might be watching this video in a few years to come, we're January 20 or February 2021 at the moment, so we're still amidst our coronavirus pandemic. Look, thank you everybody today for all the comments that you've put in there and the questions. It's really neat. It's great to have such good interaction going on, and nice to see that feed, quite busy today. And Jutta, thank you so much. And yeah, it's just great. And I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head, that women should be able to come away from their education feeling excited and looking forward to what's ahead of them. And of course there's going to be areas that you're like, well, so often women want to feel like, I wish I knew what was going to happen. Well, nobody knows. The one thing that's predictable, isn't it, that it's not predictable, but you could still be feeling excited about it, and
you should be left. Because all we can say is, this is the time of your life, definitely, and it's so special. And you should really, and every day one feels good is a day you feel good. Every day you feel excited and positive is really a day where you are excited and positive, no matter what's coming next. Yeah. So thank you.
Fabulous. Love it. Mwah. Okay, well, thank you everybody, and particularly those that are here live. I know a lot of you watch it after, later on, and but those that turn up for live, it's great to have you guys here. And I wish everybody a wonderful rest of your week, and thank you so much, Jutta.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Bye, everyone.